Hey, Frog Prince Rana here, and thank you for dropping by. Well, this is perhaps be the most disjointed video I've ever done, so here's my advance apology for that. I do hope you'll be able to sit through this video though. First thing needed for a video is obviously the topic. It makes sense to have a group of people working for you who'd scour the news to find out what crazy things are happening. Then the next tier is where you have a great audience who'd pass you various tidbits. Then one can look through various sources themselves to find a topic worth talking about. I don't fall into any of that. If by some freak accident I look at, for example, 4chan website, I literally feel my brain cell dying. With years of cannabis use, I don't have many to begin with, so that's a rabbit hole I'm not going into. Fortunately for me though, I do have an acquaintance who I kind of rely on for some resources. I would classify him as an inverted compass. Elaborating this a bit more, we had conversation that ranged from religion, science to politics. Simply put, the only nut job theory he doesn't follow is flat earth, and that is about all. From calling 911 an inside job to Sandy Hook, he's over all of it. To give another example, he actually laid bets with William Hill regarding the US election earlier this year. Now, what is the big deal with that, you might be asking? Many people places bet on such thing. Well, that is true, but I'm talking about laying the bet after the election was over. He got an odd of 1 to 39, which I personally thought was rather low. I believe he was expecting around £500,000 in return and even had plans on how to spend it. Oh well, it is good to have someone like that in one's sphere. Basically, if you're in agreement with something, then I start doubting my own position. That is what I meant by an inverted compass. And obviously he is a Brexit supporter. Now no surprises there. So let's start from beginning of last year, as COVID just started spreading like wildfire. His first comment was, "It is all because of 5G. After I stopped laughing and took a big sip of Jack, I had to point out all the deaths in countries without 5G. That time I was doing some basic research for Bangladesh government regarding the infection and had real field data. After explaining that to him, the goalpost was shifted to, it is all the druggies. Oh dear. Some more sips and then trying to explain to him how all the poor people were being infected who didn't have enough money to buy food, let alone drugs. Then came the next talking point. It is a seasonal flu. Some more real-world data, comparing death tolls over the last 10 years, taking account of the population growth and expected death if the trend was the same. That was really the first time I realized nothing was ever enough for him. Now, as he belongs to the group who scour over Facebook with confirmation bias, I do regularly get posts from him. Reading some of these messages, my first thought was, there are not enough forehead in the world for the facepalm needed. So I thought this might be a chance for me to share some of the craziness with you. And for those anti-vaxxers who need some tips to follow to stay in the rabbit hole, and maybe it would be an eye-opener. It's not real, Rana. The evidence is overwhelming. Please do not take the vaccine ever, as it is pure poison, with its only design of killing you. 3 years on the outside, but most will die within 2. I got all the evidence to prove this. So let's clear this up in our minds first, so you're working with all the info before thinking of taking the vaccine. Sadly, I'm sorry to bring you the bad news, but knowing this can only help you save lives. That was a message with links to Luc Montagnier post. I have already done a video on that in case you're interested. Link in the description below. At this point, I explained to him that I couldn't find that exact quote about us dying, but I did find stupid remarks about variants, and asked him if he personally saw that particular statement. The comeback was legendary. He's not saying it's good, right? It's poisoned, designed over the last 10 plus years to kill those who take it. This is a fact or a reality most do not want to know. They do not want to know the government is actually allowing this to happen, as they're actually in on it. This is not only true in the UK and the US, but most other countries including Canada and Australia, as well as many others. Bottom line is, there are no vaccines safe to take. Easily understandable, as it's not been tested and it's nothing but ingredients that are pure poison. Now, what does it serve you to take the vaccine? Does it mean you can get put off lockdown? No. Does it mean you don't have to wear a mask? No. Does it mean you won't get coronavirus? No. Does it mean you don't need to practice the 6-foot rule? No. Does it mean you can open your small business? No. Does it mean anything other than saying you took it? No. So why on God's free earth would you take a vaccine that is not tested and gives you zero benefit? Think about it for a minute. He concludes his irate with, the only reason someone takes the vaccine without being pressured by work, etc., to do so is that they think it gives you peace of mind. However, if you turn off the TV, you will be okay in the mind cause you're not feeling that with crap to even get these feelings. Do not take, period. Well, let us think about it for more than a minute just to be on the safe side and dismantle every point one by one. It is poison designed over the last 10 plus years to kill those who take it. Now, maybe because I have played way too many zombie games, or perhaps because I have half a brain cell. There are a couple of things I understand. One of those being, supermarkets do not have a magical portal that gets all the goods we require. Our society and infrastructure relies on people. From food, commodity, to even drinking water relies on workforce. Now, of course, we may have individuals who just like to see the world burned, and those would be the anti-vaxxers. But the idea of not only one government, but all the governments around the world being in cahoot to kill the entire mankind is just ludicrous. Not to mention that there is no fact behind it, just hot air. Next is the opinion that there are no vaccines safe to take. Easily understandable, as it's not been tested and is nothing but ingredients that are pure poison. Ask them what any of those poison are, and all we hear is crickets. The fact being, vaccines have been tested thoroughly. That is exactly what happened with the Johnson & Johnson shot. CDC found a potential pattern of rare blood clots and paused the rollout under an abundance of caution. While some dumbass might think it as evidence that they were right about vaccine being dangerous, in reality, it kind of proves the opposite. I have added links to some vaccine tests in description in case you want to read some more. There are claims that mRNA vaccines modify your DNA. It is important to understand that vaccines mRNA does not enter our genome. It does its work far away from cell's nucleus, which is where your DNA is. Some evangelicals are concerned that it contains cells from aborted fetuses, which it does not. There are also rumors that vaccines cause infertility. These rumors fueled by a blog post which falsely claimed that Pfizer vaccines contained ingredients capable of training the female body to attack a protein that plays a crucial role in the development of the placenta. It is inaccurate with zero evidence to support it. During the vaccine trials last year, multiple women became pregnant, and the only one who suffered a pregnancy loss were given the placebo. And then there is the myth of the risk from the vaccine being greater than the risk of COVID. In fact, there were a hoax about a nurse dying after taking the vaccine. We even saw death certificate for that. That was debunked by myself and many others. Once again, link in description. There was another story about 23 people in Norway dying within a week of getting the shot, which does sound scary, but once you read more into that, you will find that it was at a stage where in Norway, the vaccine was being administered to the oldest or sickest people. Unfortunately, a certain percentage of them were statistically going to die that week, vaccine or no vaccine. On average, 400 people die every week in nursing homes in Norway. When the World Health Organization reviewed those incidents, they didn't find any unexpected or untoward increase in fatalities. So we have covered the myth of not being tested or being poisonous. Let's look at the other claims. What does it serve you to take the vaccine? Does it mean you can get put off lockdown? Does it mean you don't have to wear a mask? Does it mean you won't get coronavirus? Does it mean you don't need to practice the 6-foot rule? Does it mean you can open your small business? Well, from the latest study, the vaccine are about 95% effective. To put that into perspective, when used correctly, a male condoms are 98% effective. This means 2 out of 100 people will become pregnant in 1 year, while male condoms are used as contraception. Seat belts in a car are about 60% effective. Does that mean we stop using them? Of course not. Similarly, taking the vaccine reduces your chance of getting the virus. So for instance, the last complaint that the CDC still recommends wearing masks indoors when around vulnerable, unvaccinated people does not mean the vaccine doesn't work. Clinical trials found that vaccines are successful at preventing people from getting serious disease. As for whether they protect you from spreading the virus, the trials weren't designed to assess that, but evidence so far indicates that to be the case. Only a bloody fool would ask us such a question like, what does it serve you to take the vaccine? The key thing to remember is that no side effect of the vaccine is worse than the alternative COVID. On one hand, we have a virus that has killed over 3.74 million people around the world, and on the other hand, we have vaccines that have been proven to kill exactly 0 people. So, does it mean anything other than saying you took it? Yes, it does. The more the virus circulates, the likelier it will see mutations that make it more dangerous, possibly helping it to evade the vaccine completely. You might not get seriously sick from COVID or indeed sick at all, but you can still inadvertently pass it to someone who could then die. We can all do what is expected of us by making the world a better place for everyone. Not everything is about me, and me. It is more than natural to have questions, but there are reassuring answers out there. And anyone just throwing out questions without acknowledging that probably has another agenda entirely. Anyway, the next link I got from him titled, Pfizer confirmed COVID vaccinated people can shed spike proteins and harm the unvaccinated. This was from Christians for Truth. To be honest, at this point, I was getting a bit annoyed. I understand that reading is hard. I mean, who has time for that, right? Well, I do. If any of these scaremongers actually bothered reading the articles they linked to, they would have found the article on page 6 to conclude with, this conclusion suggests that vaccination generated antibody and/or exogenous antibodies against S protein not only protects the host from SARS-CoV-2 infectivity, but also inhibits S protein imposed endothelial injury and ultimately decreases cardiovascular complication associated mortality in COVID-19 patients. But to these people, anything coming from America's frontline doctors is a gospel. These are the same people who had suggested hydrochloroquine with stellaraminol and blaming medical conditions on demon sex and alien DNA. I have covered this particular nutcase in one of my earlier videos. I had ended my message with, "Well, I'm sure your God Emperor would be back on power in August and magically all would go away." And got back the reply I expected. "Once the US stops the charade, so shall the rest of the world. Yes, Trump will be back this summer, but it's not about him. This is where good beats evil. Anyway, the main thing is never take the vaccine." One final thing I would like to address. This is to understand exactly how the vaccine was able to come to market so fast. Simple fact being, because researchers had been working on vaccines against other coronaviruses for years, so when COVID-19 hit, they had a significant head start. Operation Warp Speed, as it was famously called, wasn't about rushing the science. It was about significantly cutting through the bureaucracy that could have otherwise slowed it down. As a vaccine researcher explained, we were able to compress the timeline so that things that would normally do in a linear fashion, A to B, we actually start the F and the E at the same time as A and B. Basically, we took steps that usually happened sequentially and saved time by running them simultaneously. Now, there are other viruses that we don't have any vaccines for, just due to financial cost versus benefit. But this unprecedented pandemic wasn't the case. Now, I don't expect to change anyone's mind. I have been having an argument with a virus denier last week. Yes, last week. Isn't that bloody moronic? What I learned from him was 1. Deny the existence and repeat the following. Show me scientific proof. Now don't worry, you don't have to understand science, because whatever is presented, just ignore it and repeat the same phrase over and over again. Number 2, if you do believe in the existence, claim that the vaccine hasn't been tested, refute all the clinical data, and be sure to throw words like Big Pharma and Deep South. I would recommend not using the word 5G though. You are stupid enough as it is. No reason to pile on top of that. Number 3, make some unfounded claim. Forget the fact that extraordinary claims require extraordinary proof. To be honest, you don't want any of that. All you're after is something to comfort you on your own daft belief. Confirmation bias is what we call it. Number 4, know that you are the most important being in the world. Though you live in a society, you're above it. You're Alpha, the Omega. You are magnificent. And don't you ever forget it. I can't take this anymore. I'm going to go now. If by any chance you have enjoyed this video, please do like, comment and share. It does help with the algorithm. If you want to be super awesome, please consider subscribing to keep up with my new contents. Thank you so much for watching. Wherever you are, have a safe day. Signing off.